Thank you and welcome. I'm Joseph Julius, your tutor. I'll be taking you through principles of an optimum tax system. As we introduce, taxes are imposed by the government to achieve some specific objectives. The imposition of taxes creates the government through taxes are spent for productive and welfare purposes. It means the taxes may create some good or bad effects. An optimum or good tax system may be defined as that tax system which helps to achieve maximum possible number of principles of taxation. A good tax system should also help to achieve the following objective. 1. To maintain economic stability. 2. To equalize the distribution of income. And 3. To increase the rate of economic growth. Now moving to principles of taxation. When taxes are imposed, certain conditions must be fulfilled. These conditions are what is known as principles or canons of taxation. Moving to the first one, the canon of equality. The canon of equality, equity, or justice is the most important canon of taxation. Smith explained in thus, the subject of every state ought to contribute towards the support of the government as nearly as possible, in proportion to their respective abilities, that is, in proportion to the revenue which they respectively enjoy under the protection of the state. It means that every person should pay the tax according to his ability and not the same amount. It also means that everybody should not pay at the same rate. Rather, every taxpayer should pay the tax in proportion to his income. The rich should pay more and at higher rate than the other person whose income is less. Thus, this canon implies equality of sacrifice or ability to pay the tax in proportion to his income. The rich should pay more and at a higher rate than the other person whose income is less. Thus, this canon implies equality of sacrifice or ability to pay the tax in proportion to the income of the taxpayer. Canon of certainty. According to Smith again, there should be certainty in taxation because uncertainty breeds corruption. By the canon of certainty, he means that the tax which each individual is bound to pay ought to be certain and not arbitrary. The time of payment, the manner of payment, the quantity to be paid ought all to be clear and plain to the contributor and to every other person. Thus, this canon requires that there should be no element of arbitrariness in a tax. It should be clear to every taxpayer as to what, when, and where the tax is to be paid. Moving on, they are somewhat simple, and as a learner, you actually need to be very keen and have them at your fingertips. The canon of convenience. This canon lays down that both the time and manner of payment should be convenient to the taxpayer. In the words of Smith, every tax ought to be levied at the time or in the manner in which it is most likely to be convenient for the contributor to pay. The payment of sales tax and excise duty by the consumer is convenient because he pays these taxes when he buys commodities and at a time when he has the means to buy. The manner of payment is very convenient to him because these taxes are included in the prices of commodities. Moving on to the canon of economy, where we are talking about every tax should satisfy the canon of economy in two ways. That is, first, it should be economical for the state to collect it. Then If the cost of collection in the form of salaries of tax officials is more than what the tax brings as revenue, such a tax is uneconomical and hence it should not be levied. Secondly, it should be economical to the taxpayer. That is, it should actually leave the taxpayer with sufficient money to be able to spend on other needs. A very heavy tax on income will discourage saving and investment and thus adversely affect the productive capacity of the community. Then moving on to the canon of productivity. According to this canon, a tax should be productive in the sense that it should bring large revenue, which should be adequate for the government. But it does not mean that in its effort to raise more revenue, the government should tax the people heavily. Such an effort would adversely affect the productive capacity of the economy. Continuation of taxation principles. Moving to the next one, that is the canon of elasticity. That this canon is actually closely related to that of productivity, but the canon of elasticity requires that the government should be able to raise the rates of taxes when it is in need of more revenue. So in other words, taxes should be elastic. The best example is excise duties, that they can be levied on any number of commodities and their rates can be increased every year in order to raise more revenue. But care has to be taken that the rates of excise duties should not be raised, that they may encourage inflationary pressure in the economy. Remember, we have there are around 5 major canons. Then the other canons were developed by other economists, but the first 4 were developed by Adam Smith before the other, after some or many years later, other canons were also added. That is where we are at this point. Please try to be keen and grasp the great concepts that are applicable in these areas as we keep to the canon of simplicity. You can have a short moment and check whether you are okay with the first canons. Thank you. The canon of simplicity, that is just a system of taxation, should be simple, plain and intelligible. Otherwise there will be confusion and even corruption. Then lastly, we are having the canon of diversity. That is, we are talking about there should be diversity or a variety in taxation. A single or a few taxes will neither meet the revenue requirements of the state nor satisfy the canon of equity. So there should therefore be a variety of taxes so that all citizens should contribute towards state revenue according to their ability to pay. This is because reliance on just a few taxes is actually very risky. Thank you for watching. Kindly subscribe to our channel, Liajal Show. Hit the notification bell and we'll see you there.